Episode of the Women Writing Intentionally show with Jenny Alberti and Tracey Rampling Brown. Join us as we talk all things writing and publishing, from insider secrets to our own author journeys. We are committed to providing a safe platform for women to share their stories, knowledge, and truth without fear of betrayal, criticism, or judgment. By coming together in a genuine spirit of collaboration, we provide opportunities for growth, healing, and transformation that benefit all women, authors and readers alike. Our vision is to help our authors intentionally build an aligned legacy and portfolio that supports their mission as a woman, human being, and business owner. So, today, Jenny and I are going to be talking about the leverage gap, or more specifically, Jenny's going to tell you about her incredible belief about the leverage gap and how you can identify it, and also how we can actually close that gap. So, Jenny, tell us, what is the leverage gap?
Well, so most authors, they get to the point where they publish and they go through that launch process, and most of them either reach bestseller or they don't at that point, and then it kind of fizzles out. They leave a lot of the sales and everything that comes after that kind of up to chance. And they don't really take control of those book sales and what happens from those book sales. So essentially, the leverage gap is a gap in leveraging the book, like how to actually make money from the book. How do we leverage this book to grow your business, to grow your audience, to grow your email list, to grow your impact in general? So something that I kind of experienced, but I took matters into my own hands naturally, was this gap of, hey, I don't have a plan. There's no plan that's been set out. I haven't been given the steps to do anything after this book gets launched. So if anyone is a best-selling author, they've reached bestseller, or they have published their book and it's out there in the world, but they are not getting any sort of money that they can link back directly to this book.
And we're not just talking about royalties here, are we? We're talking about like actual clients and business building revenue, right?
Yeah. We are pretending that none of the people I'm talking to are getting paid royalties. We're going to pretend that, right? We're going to pretend that none of them get any royalties. So they are not making any money from this book being out there in the world. They're not getting any clients. They're not getting any prospective clients. Nobody is knocking on their door saying, hey, I saw you in this book, or hey, I picked up your book. And they're not growing their audience at all. So if anyone is experiencing those things, they are experiencing this leverage gap. So that's what it is. Not making money, having no plan.
Awesome. I think this is something that's really important to be talking about, because I know that quite often what we see when when the opportunity to write comes up is that we're going to make money writing, or that we're going to either get offered a traditional publishing deal with an amazing huge advance, or we're going to join a collaborative book project or write our solo book project, and magically we're going to go from writing the book to making money in our business. And in part, it's because we are being told that we're going to be able to leverage the book. And that isn't actually always, and quite often it doesn't happen at all. We're promised these things and then the strategies fall short. So how do we get around that?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that it totally can. So in truth, a lot of people are being told that this is going to increase their audience, increase their network, increase um, their impact, increase their revenue, and it absolutely can. That is true. However, a lot of the in between is
The bit that's
not
missing.
It's not there. It's not there. So how do you get from this is what this should take place, you should have this, to actually having it? So filling in that gap that is it's not taught too widely. And it's kind of hard to figure out on your own if you don't come from a sales and marketing background. It's not a natural thing to make that connection, because it's also hard to figure out if you are in a collaborative book and you have all of these other people doing all these other things in this book, and the topic of the book probably isn't related to what you do in business. So it's not natural to make the connection and to figure that out without any help. How can I grow a business about, you know, for me, how can I grow a coaching business, teaching women how to write content from a book about societal expectations? Like, how do I grow my business from that? Right. And I come from a sales and marketing background, so I was able to connect those dots. Right. But it's not natural for a lot of people. So I have identified, on the back end of Aligned Leaders that you and I were both in, on the back end of that, I made $17,500. I talk about this quite frequently. And I made that amount of money kind of by accident, really. And had I had a plan going into it, it would have been so much different, and I know I would have made so much more. So I want to be able to provide, even if your book is launched, even if it launched last year or 2 years ago, I want to provide some actionable steps that we can go do. Anybody could go do to fill in that gap and to start making some money. So we're going to talk about those things.
So, and I just want to make it clear here, while we are talking about collaborative books, this isn't only relevant to collaborative books. This is also, I see a lot in some of the self-publishing groups and the indie publishing groups that I'm in, that whether you're a fiction author, whether you are a non-fiction author, whether you write poetry, whether you do even low content journals and things like that, people are sitting there and asking the same questions over and over because they're confused about how to build their author platforms. They don't really understand how they can leverage their books. Some of the things I see quite often is, oh, I uploaded my book to KDP like a month ago and I haven't had any sales.
Yeah.
And one of the first questions people ask is like, where have you told people about it? Have you been marketing it? Have you emailed your list? And they're like, an email list? Like, what are you talking about? Like, tell people. Am I supposed don't I just upload it to Amazon and people just start buying my book? Isn't that how it works? And so, like Jenny said, it really doesn't matter whether you published a book 5 minutes ago or 5 years ago. What we're going to talk about today, what Jenny's going to share with us, is relevant to anybody. So if you have a book or you are about to launch a book, definitely have a notepad and a pen and take some notes.
Yeah, any sort of book. I use the collaborative book because that was the experience that I had, but it is universal. It applies to any book or any piece of writing that you're publishing, because the steps are going to be the same regardless. And you don't necessarily need to have an email list. I didn't have an email list to make $17,500. I utilized, what I did have. So, I have 3 components that we're going to go over. And the first component is really kind of what we're alluding to is changing the way that you think about selling your book. So changing your thought process, changing your perspective about what that means to sell your book. It has a lot to do with us taking control. And yes, the book is going to be in several places. It's going to be wherever it is that you're publishing it and you're distributing it to. So if it's on Amazon, yes, it's going to be sold on Amazon. Great. But where else? How else are you going to take control? Because selling a book, we're not only making money from the book sales. Truthfully, that should be passive income. That should just be happening. You should be making royalties while you're sleeping, while you're whatever, you're in the shower, you're whatever, outside, right? You should be making money at any point through the royalties. That's passively coming in. You're not doing any extra work for that to take place. The work that you're doing is going to take place with what you're controlling. And so that is the bulk of the revenue. That is the bulk of the income, is what you control. And that alone is a perspective shift, because most people think book sales is what's happening on Amazon, happening wherever the book is being sold, if they get a percentage of that, right? And a lot of collaborative books are not that, like, there is no money coming to them from book sales, right? So there's that component too. So number one, we need to change the way that we think of selling a book, and we need to look at it as this is our responsibility to sell the book. So like that example that you just gave about this person in the KDP group, like, I put it up on Amazon, great, now it's your responsibility to go sell it. So the thing with publishing on Amazon and having your book being sold by a third party is you have no clue who is purchasing it. You have no idea who's buying the book, right? And that is a big problem, because at that point, Amazon or whoever becomes the person or the entity that is now able to upsell that person. They can sell them another book, right? Like on Amazon, all the recommendations. People who bought this book also buy all these books. Okay, if it's in a bookstore, then that's a natural upsell. I think I bought Silly Putty the last time I was.
I usually come home with like an armful of books, but it's whatever's at the front counter, right? You're like,
Yes.
oh, notebooks, oh, pretty pens, oh, Silly
Right.
Putty.
Exactly, right? Fidget spinners. Perfect. I need that.
Unicorn glasses cleaners. That was the last thing
Yes.
I bought at a bookstore. I was like, oh, it's only $3 and it's got unicorns on it. My glasses
Yeah.
are going to look so clean.
Yes. So they are now reaping the benefits of the upsell from your book. So what we want to do is we want to take control of all of that. Yes, your book will still be sold in those places, and that's great, and you'll get royalties from that. However, we still want to take control as much as possible by knowing who's purchasing our book. So how do you do that, right? If they are purchasing on Amazon, we just need to make some sort of connection with the people that are in our audience. If somebody learns about our book on Facebook or on Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever we are, they learn about our book there and they go buy it on Amazon, we also need to provide them with a call to action to raise their hand and let us know that they purchased the book. Because Amazon is not going to tell us that they bought the book there. Barnes & Noble is not going to tell us that they bought the book at Barnes & Noble.
Surprise! Right? They don't send us a list of people who purchase.
Yeah, it would be great. So we need to provide that call to action. And this is going to allow us to know who's buying our book, who's interested, who is a prospective client, who are we connecting with, right? So that is part of number 2. Okay, so number 2 is really we have to have a call to action and have these people raise their hand. Now, the call to action is part of number 3. So, part of number 3 is going to be that we need to have some sort of an offer stack. Okay, now most everybody is coaching or consulting or doing something else, right? If they're not, what can you create? What can you create? What offer can you create for them? Okay, so that they can come into your world, get some sort of a freebie, and now be either on your email list or more entrenched in your universe. So, an offer stack, 3 things: a freebie, a mid-ticket offer, or somewhere between $200 to $500, an offer there, and then a higher ticket offer, depending on what it is that you do for your business. It's gonna depend, but some sort of a stack, always starting with the freebie. So, call to action, raise your hand, let us know that you purchased this. Okay, because if you do, you're going to get this awesome freebie, right? Now they're more into your universe. Then from there, you could continue to email them, continue to carry on the conversation with them, and then present them with some reason to buy from you something if it's a lower ticket. For example, what I did is my lower ticket was a workshop, and it was $25. It was a $25 workshop on creating content. And from there, I knew exactly who was buying that workshop. I was in contact with them. We would schedule then the next step, which was to go on into the one-on-one. And the one-on-one was VIP days. So that was a $500 offer. From there, it was my one-on-one. So this offer stack, one thing led to the next. But I couldn't do any of that if I didn't know who was buying my book. So if everybody was just going to Amazon, how would I know how could I possibly leverage my book if I had no idea? So that is kind of like the 3 steps, right? And we also need to, when we do this call to action for people to raise our hand, we also need to understand how to write content for them
Which,
to want to purchase.
we've just written chapters or we've just written books. So, I mean, writing content really
goes hand in hand.
Feels like it should, it feels like it should come easily. And yet, ironically, it's something that a lot of writers actually struggle with.
It is sort of ironic, and all you need to really do is create content about what you talked about in the book. It's not too crazy of an ask.
I'm a big believer in repurposing, totally. Just rape and pillage what you've already written and find a way to make it sexy again in a different way.
Rearrange it. Absolutely. Yeah. So 3 components. Change the way that we're thinking about how we're selling. Number 2 is call to action. Have people raise their hand when they purchase the book. We need to have some sort of content created around that. Tell the person about what you're offering them. That's going to be the first step, which is the freebie. And then after that, we need to have an offer stack leading them through. Okay, I have the book. I'm going to raise my hand. I'm going to get this freebie. Then what? Okay, then we take them through. Oh, that's me. Then we take them through. We take them through the offer stack, right? Does that make sense, Tracey?
Yeah, it does. I love it, and I think it's really good to have it made have it broken down so clearly about how the offer stack works. One of the things that I was thinking as you were talking was about how do people then go about being able to funnel people into that low ticket offer? Are we talking about making sure that they put some kind of line in their bio in the book and saying, hey, like sign up for my free meditation at my website, or sign up for my free social media audit, or sign up for my free, or like my masterclass, like check out my website? Or are we talking about in terms of when we're marketing our book in our social content and being like, hey guys, guess what? I've just had this amazing book come out, like last month or last week or yesterday or whenever. And, buy the book. And if you purchase, you can go to my website and like put in your receipt details and you'll get a bonus copy of my meditation. Or are we talking about both?
Well, we are talking about both, but the problem with the bio is that again is something that we can't control. We can't control them, going to the bio, reading. That means they have to read it and then take action on it, right? So there will be a percentage of people that do that. And we absolutely want to have that in there in our bio so that they can get into our universe, right? But then we also want to take some control and make this sort of a forcing function where we put out there, hey, if you've purchased the book, or hey, for anyone that does purchase my book, I'm offering this, right? And it could be as simple, it doesn't need to be as sophisticated as enter, your receipt number or whatever. Let's be honest, I didn't have anything when I did this. I had nothing. Okay. I didn't even have a website that was functioning at the time. Right. So everything was done manually. So I know that you could, that's why I said I just kind of accidentally did this amount of money without these things in place. So I know that it's possible to do completely manually. Just we could post on social media. We have Messenger where we can connect directly with people. We can connect with people through the comments. We could do this through email, but we have to be the ones that say, if you do this, this is what you get, right? So that's how they get into the quote unquote the pipeline, for lack of a better term. They get into the pipeline with, hey, I purchased the book. You said there was a freebie. I want it. They get the freebie. And then how do we move them forward, right? We move them forward with, again, us taking control, and we initiate that conversation. Now, when we have things more automated, we could carry that conversation on through emails. We can have automation. We can have drip campaigns that carry on the conversation, which, now I'm moving in that direction where I'm not having to constantly go out and initiate a conversation in Messenger and comments. The email can do that and push them forward from that freebie to, hey, here's the next offer, and continuing that for as long as they're on my email list.
But
Does that answer your question?
Oh my God, Jenny, are you telling us that even though all the marketing coaches out there are telling us that we have to have these fancy funnels in place, that you can actually make money by leveraging your book without even having a website?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And you really, like I mentioned Messenger or comments, you can carry on conversations with people without direct messaging them too. Like that's also.
Oh, I know. That was actually one of the things that I loved so much. Like circa 2019, before the pandemic, when everyone was hanging out on LinkedIn, that all of the fun stuff was happening in the comments. Like so much of the relationship building, so much of the getting to know people was all happening. None of it was happening in the DMs. In fact, the only people that ever use the DMs on LinkedIn sliding in to sell you something unannounced. It's kind of like getting a dick pic. Nobody wants that shit. But everything good happens in the comments. Like, that is where the magic happens. And I had some amazing collaborative opportunities come out of just banter in public forums, public posts, because of course LinkedIn is a little bit different than Facebook, where everything kind of happens on the main feed, and you end up with like posts that have 500 comments on them, just like profile posts, whereas that kind of thing doesn't really happen on Facebook. That only happens in groups. And then of course you're limited by who is in that group rather than just everybody you know. But that is one of the things that has come and stuck with me ever since then, is that attraction marketing and being open and honest and putting these things out in your public content, like on your, whether it's your Facebook business page, whether it is your personal profile feed in your public posts to anybody who checks out your profile, whether it is limited to just the people that you are Facebook friends with, whether it is your Instagram caption content, whether it is your, LinkedIn profile content, wherever it is, like being really upfront and honest in your content, talking about who you are, what you do, what your offers are, like be the lighthouse. Put it out there so that whoever it is that needs to hear your message can see it without you having to slide into their DMs. And let's face it, on Facebook, chances are, if you don't actually know that person, you're automatically getting filtered into the message requests or the spam folder. So they're not even going to see it anyway. And on the off chance, if they do see it, if they're anything like me, the answer is automatically, yeah, sorry, I'm not really into being cold DM'd, but thanks. But it's one of those things where the more that we talk about these things in public, whether we're talking about our books, right? So we're here to talk about leveraging our books. The only way that we're going to be able to leverage them is by talking about them, by saying, hey guys, oh my goodness, I've just published this book, or I have a book coming out next month. Like, Jenny, you've got a book coming out in less than a month from now on the 23rd of September. And one of the things I've been loving lately is that I can see all over my Facebook feed you and your authors talking about the book coming out, talking about the author summit that you are running like next week. And people are seeing it. People are getting excited about it. The authors are sharing, like, this is what I'm going to be talking about in my summit presentation. And this is how we actually are able to then create that momentum, because if we're talking about, hey guys, I've got this book, and if you are like, here's my freebie, like here's my link to my freebie, or buy my book, support it and get my freebie, or whatever it is, buy my $25 masterclass or whatever, you are not only going to be building your email list if you're getting them to sign up through a landing page, or whether you're messaging them directly and building that one-to-one relationship with them through having an actual conversation with a real person, or whether you do have something more sophisticated in where you've got nurture sequences and funnels and like a proper value ladder or an offer stack actually created already. But when you're starting out as a new author, you can be like Jenny and not have any of that stuff in place, and literally just be putting your content out on your feed, telling people what it is that you have and how you're doing it, and what they like, how they can work with you, or how they can apply the information in your books. And so, like, I've got a book coming out in October that I'm doing a collaborative book called Lunar Wisdom. And one of the things that I'm really excited about in that book is that each of the authors is contributing something to a ritual spellbook section. So there will actually be information that people can go out and apply straight away. But it also opens up so much opportunity for the authors to be able to talk about that in their content. Some of the girls already are sharing in the groups with like new moon tarot spreads or oracle card spreads that they are planning to share in their chapters in the author group, author community, saying, hey guys, does anyone want to test this out for me? Let me know your feedback. And that's the kind of thing you can also put into your like public content. Be like, hey guys, this is a taster of what I've got in my book, but if you would like to book a private one-on-one reading with me, it costs $25 or $35 or something like that. So that you're giving people, again, if I'm getting this right, Jenny, let me know if I'm wrong, where you're saying to people, look, here's how you can do it yourself, but if you don't want to have to do it yourself, if you don't have some oracle cards at home or whatever, you can book a reading with me for like $35 or whatever it is that you sell, and then move on from there.
Yeah, you bring up such a good point that there's so much content that we can create. If you're writing a chapter or you're writing an entire book, you have created so much content already that all you need to do is use some of that and put a call to action at the end of it. Like, just put a call to action, pick something that you have written, create a small post about it, put a call to action to either get the book and get the freebie, or like you're saying, book a one-on-one. The opportunities are literally endless to be able to post, not just as a book is going into being launched, but well after. Because after the book is published, now you have this asset that you can always go back to. And you should always be going back to it, because this should always provide a source of prospective clients and of revenue to you. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you go to make a piece of content. You have so much.
You can take extracts from your chapter, or from, like, if you've written the whole book yourself, or if you've written poetry or something, or a children's book, you can use extracts from your story, share little snippets, or share turn it into a beautiful picture, like a graphic post where you've got a quote from the book, whether you've got a picture of a page in your storybook, whether you've got one of your pieces of poetry, whether you even take some excerpts from other people's chapters in the book as well, and talk about the other things that you loved. Like, in collaborative books, there is so much opportunity to continue to leverage that, because you can keep talking about everybody else's chapters and what was amazing about that, and what your author journey was like. And like, there is just so much. And if you've written your solo book, and assuming that perhaps you are writing a non-fiction book, that if you're a service provider like a coach or something, and you're talking about your particular methodology, or say you're into manifestation and you're writing a book about manifestation, every single chapter in your book is an opportunity to create some kind of summary and some kind of social content about it. And the thing is that you're never really giving away too much, because even if you were giving like summaries of each chapter, the truth is that most people aren't necessarily going to see every post. You get to see every post you put out there. But the way that the algorithms work, and again, this is something I learned on LinkedIn, not everybody sees all of your content. And even if you were posting literally 4 times a day, if I posted 4 times a day, I guarantee you Jenny would not see all 4 of those posts. Right? Mm-hmm. Because it depends on time of day that you post. It just depends on what the algorithm thinks is popular. And sometimes, there are things that come up on my feed several days after they've originally been posted, which I think is wild. So they're not even showing me the most current things. But we often feel like we're talking about things too much. Oh, I talked about my book yesterday. I can't talk about it again today, because people are going to think I'm really up myself for, talking about my book again. they may not have seen your post yesterday. Even if they did, they might really appreciate the reminder and be like, oh, I meant to go and buy that, or oh, I bought that and I haven't started reading it yet, or oh, yeah, I was really looking forward to signing up for freebie or something. And so we really can't talk about it too much. Right, Jenny? Do you agree?
You
Or do
know,
you feel like that's an extrovert thing?
no, not at all, not at all.
Talking
So,
too much.
right, so I came from a sales background, right? And even if every single person on your friends list saw every single one of those posts that you made, every single post that you post 4 times a day, and every single person on your friends list saw every single one of those posts, there's a very high chance that that still wouldn't be enough for them to take action.
Mm-hmm. It's
Because
crazy.
of, for whatever reason, they're busy, they're distracted, or it just didn't sink in at the time that they actually resonated with this. And there's so many different ways that you could say something that one way you say it for one person doesn't resonate, but you say the same thing in a different way the next day and it resonated for that person, right? Or there's something that clicked and they said, oh, okay, yeah, actually, I really do need that, or the timing is right. So it doesn't matter how many times you say something, you cannot post it enough. And we're also, think of all the different places we can post and all the different ways that we can reach people. Because even if we only, like, I'm really only a Facebook chick. I really just mess with Facebook. Like, I don't like Instagram. I don't like anything
Jenny says
else.
that, but she posts on Instagram every so often. I'm just saying.
Like, I think I posted once this month, maybe. But just on Facebook, you have your personal profile, you have your business profile, you have however many groups that you are a part of where you can make an imprint. You have Facebook stories, you now have reels. Like you could post on all of that and not actually create 4 different profile posts a day. You could use all of those different ways and it still not be enough to resonate with everybody. So, yeah, you can't post enough. But on
Yeah.
the same, I also want to stress. Me being introverted, I do kind of tap out with my energy and I don't want to post that many times. Like,
Oh, I am
you
so
could
bad at
also,
posting that many times a day.
you don't need to. So anybody that's listening, you don't actually need to do that. We're just saying that you can't post too many times. But since this is what my coaching business was about, if you learn how to post content that is extremely potent and extremely compelling, you do not have to post multiple different times in a day. Because the people that do read it, it's going to grab their attention and make them act. So that's why I say you could say something a whole bunch of different times in a whole bunch of different ways before it actually resonates. Or you probably could also learn how to create one post and get a couple of people that resonate deeply and then actually act on. So it's up to you to choose what you do.
And I mean, and this is really so this is one of the things I'm super passionate about, aside from writing, is about taking aligned action in our businesses that really fits with the way that we want to show up in our businesses. And for some people, showing up 4 times a day, no problems. Like I'm on
No
Instagram
problem.
all the time. I'm actually not, by the way. And it's the figurative I, not the literal I. Whereas for me, like I am really much better at batching, or I'm better at like binge batching content in terms of I'll either write 5 posts in a day or I'll write nothing for a month. And I need to find that balance of actually taking the time to binge create it and then drip it out and schedule it, because if I could do that, that would be much more useful to me than writing it all and posting it all in one day and then disappearing for a month. Or maybe not quite a month. But anyway, the point is that as far as our energy goes, some platforms are more energetically aligned than others. And personally, I find Instagram can be quite exhausting for me, because it does feel like you need to be, the way that they're really leaning into reels at the moment. Like, that just is way beyond my capacity for content creation at the moment. I struggle enough with the concept of story still, because, as my children tell me, I'm such a boomer. But, like creating posts, even creating enough graphics to go with the posts for Instagram to do it, because I love to, like, I write my content. I tend to write essays as my content. I find it really hard to write short posts, and I tend to write them when they come to me, and that I don't always have a pretty graphic to go with them. So places like LinkedIn and Facebook have always been some of my preferred platforms, because they work better for the way that I write and post content. And I really want to love Instagram, and sometimes I kind of feel like I'm maybe getting into the groove of it, and then they change things again. But it's all about what works for you. And if you want to post 4 times a day, that's awesome. And if you only want to post once every 3 or 4 days, that can also work. I know plenty of really successful business owners who believe that you really should only post about 3 times a week to get the maximum engagement and content. But again, it's still about consistency. Right? So it doesn't matter whether you're posting every day, multiple times a day, or just a couple of times a week. The real key is about consistency.
It's about consistency, and then the strategy behind it. Because you have to have that strategy. You have to have the plan behind the posting. So in this context, what we're talking about is the plan behind it is, to get them into this pipeline, lead them through buying the book to then purchasing offers from you so that you can grow your business. So just posting and talking about the book is great, but you have to have the strategy behind it. So whether you post 4 times a day or you post, once a week, still put this plan in place so that you can get the outcome that you want.
Well, because that's the other thing. You can post the content, but if there's no call to action, then people can't buy what they don't know isn't available. People can't buy something that's invisible. And I struggled for a long time with call to actions. I found them really hard. And one of the coaches that I worked with last year basically told us that your default call to action, if you don't know how to write a call to action, should just be, if you'd like to know more, DM me. Like, easiest call to action ever. So, and it doesn't feel like you're doing the hard sell either. It's just like, if you want to know more, or if this resonates for you, or if you'd like to find out how to work with me, just send me a message. I mean, obviously, it can be much more complex than that, and I'm sure Jenny could tell us all lots and lots of different ways to write calls to action. But I think one of the biggest issues that most of us have is that we way overthink it, instead of actually writing, message me. Want to find out more? Just message me.
Yeah. And then you end up not having a call to action at all, and you just talk about whatever you talk about, and you get the comments, or you don't get the comments, and you get the hearts and the
and the people saying, "Oh my God, I love this so much."
Yeah.
Which, oh my God, I love everything about this. Which, I write those comments all the time on people's posts. But
they probably don't have a call to action on them.
Well, no, they probably don't.
Right.
And I will confess that there are definitely people that are like, yeah, reach out and DM me if you want to find out more. And I do jump into people's inboxes. I'm like, hi, can I find out more about this? Or I love just like, I mentioned earlier that I generally don't tend to buy from people who cold DM me, right? Slide into my inbox is probably the fastest way to get me to never buy from you. But because I'm a huge fan of attraction marketing, I will follow people's content and I will stalk people whose content that I love for sometimes for days, sometimes for months. And sometimes we do have conversations in the DM. In fact, the cover designer that designed the Lunar Wisdom cover, who is amazing, we had a conversation in the DMs weeks, probably even like 2 months before I actually ended up approaching her and saying, hey, are you available to help me out with my cover because my other designer wasn't available? And she was like, yeah, like I would love to help. But it was because I was following her content and I was watching her and I'd been to her website and I'd been stalking her in a nice way, not like a creepy way. But it wasn't because she slid into my DMs and was like, hey, are you looking for a graphic designer? Are you outsourcing? Like, is it worth a conversation? Which, like, I got one of those DMs today. Hi, we are a graphic design company. Do you outsource your graphic design? Is it worth a conversation? I'm like, thanks, but no. I'm just going to, like, I like following people. I like to know who it is I'm going to be doing business with. And the only way that we can do that is actually by talking about things.
Talking about things openly, because you don't know who is stalking you. Like, she didn't know that you had been stalking her for all that time, right? Like, we don't actually know what is taking place or what people are thinking or what people are needing. So continuing to put out there what we have, and that's why, talking about our freebies and talking about our other offers in addition to the book and linking them together through really good content, it allows people to keep coming back like you were. You kept going back to her feed, you kept interacting. And then when the time was right, she's the one that you thought of.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes the one of the things that actually is a little bit of a bugbear of mine is that people keep talking about engagement and how I've seen a few times in things, people saying, oh, we're removing inactive followers from the group because they're not engaging, or, oh, I'm deleting people off my friends list that haven't liked or commented on any of my posts in the last 6 months. And the problem with this is actually that statistically speaking, there is a very high percentage of people that end up buying from you that never like or comment on your posts, depending on what industry you're in. For example, somebody, and I forget who it was, somebody in my circle of friends was talking about the fact that they're a divorce coach. And that's not exactly the kind of thing you want to advertise that you're commenting on or liking if you're thinking about maybe getting a divorce. So you might just be silently stalking somebody, not commenting, not engaging, but then when you're ready, you buy from them. Or it might be, I have other friends who work in like sacred sexuality or are sex coaches and things like that. And again, same kind of thing. People aren't necessarily commenting on their public posts or in groups because they don't necessarily want people to know that they're liking or commenting on that. And you see this a lot more now that Facebook has the anonymity in group posts where people can post anonymously, where they don't want to be to have that vulnerability of people being able to link questions to their names or scenarios or things like that. And it's like that with our content. Sometimes the people who are liking us and following us are not actually liking us with those little love hearts or the thumbs up or the haha faces or any other emoji. They're not dropping gifts. They're not doing things. They're just popping up into our inboxes. I mean, one of the authors from Lunar Wisdom, who I adore, is somebody who moves in similar circles to me, who had signed up to my mailing list 6 or 8 months ago that I have never personally interacted with specifically before. And I sent out an email to my email list saying, hey, I've got this book. I'm open to contributing authors. And she emailed me back and she was like, oh my goodness, how do I actually, no, she didn't email me back straight away. She booked a call with me. She clicked the link and booked a call. And I was like, oh, like, where did this come from? And then I realized that it had come from this email that I'd sent. But it wasn't, if I had been thinking that she was commenting or liking my post, she wasn't. And we need to be aware that continuing to show up, continuing to post, continuing to do the things, even if we're not getting the likes and the comments that give us that personal validation, doesn't mean that people aren't watching us. It doesn't mean that people aren't listening to our message. It doesn't mean people aren't absorbing that message. It just means that we have to keep doing it anyway.
Right? Well, that's the thing. It's part of what you have to do, regardless of who is reacting or engaging with it. You continue doing it. You continue promoting your book. You continue creating the content with call to actions that are going to get them into that funnel, right? You're going to continue doing that because that's what you do. Regardless of, I teach people how to create content, and I have plenty of posts that I was like, oh my gosh, this is a great post. I nailed it. I hit everything that I teach. And there's like my mom. I love you, Mom. But like my mom, heart and a share. Oh, somebody shared it. It was my mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But that doesn't discourage me. I definitely don't think, oh gosh, I don't know what I'm doing and I shouldn't continue doing this, right? No, you just keep doing it because we don't know. We don't know who is watching. We don't know who has read that post and for whatever reason they didn't want to comment or they didn't want to love it or like it, right? But it resonated and they'll probably be back tomorrow to read tomorrow's post, right? And that's the other thing is that we also don't know who actively clicks on our things, right? Because we rely and we talk so much on the algorithm and who sees the post. But if I there's a couple of people that that I'm friends with that if I don't see their posts that day, I will actively go to their profile. I will go seek out what they've said that day because maybe I didn't engage or the algorithm just didn't want to show it to me for that day or whatever. So there's also that component as well. We don't know who's doing that. And that's why we have to be consistent and create this really good content.
Yeah, I agree with that so much. It's also really important, especially like I know we've kind of segued a little bit into talking about content posting and marketing from that perspective, but this is really important as an author to know these things as we're building our author platforms and to leverage our books to turn them into sales and revenue. But one of the things a coach I worked with said once before is that, especially if you're in the coaching industry, but also if you are a business owner, is these days businesses collapse or pivot or change really quickly. And so people are hesitant to buy from people that have only just come onto their radars sometimes. They want to see if that person's still going to be around in like 4 months' time. And if you are still around and like posting your thing in like 4 months, 8 months, a year, 2 years, they're like, oh, she's been around a while. Chances are she's still going to be around for a while, because there are so many businesses that pop up and they're like, yes, we're doing this. I mean, I've signed up for courses before where I've bought it on pre-order. It turns out the course hasn't even been written yet and it never actually eventuates, right? And the coach disappears. Because things are constantly changing. So the more that you are showing up, the more consistent you are, the more that you are showing people that you're still there. Like if you're not posting on your business page and neglecting it, and the last post that was on there was like on the 1st of January 2021, people are going to be like, have they gone out of business?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it actually, like, do I want to sign up for their course? Do I want to buy their freebie? Do I want to do their thing? Because it doesn't really look like they're using this page. And whether we think we're getting reach or not, this is the thing about Facebook business pages or author pages. Like as an author, having a Facebook page as opposed to your personal profile is important because it tells people who you are, what you're doing when your books are released, what you're talking about. I was literally looking at a cover designer's Facebook page earlier this week. I think it was Friday last week. And the last post that they had on there was 6 months ago. So even though they had been given a shout out in a self-publishing group on Friday last week, where they'd been tagged in it for having designed a cover last week, when I went and looked at their Facebook page, which had been tagged, they hadn't posted in 6 months. And so it's kind of like, are they still designing covers or are they not? And it's, like as authors and in the publishing industry, this is really important because people are deciding, like if you're an editor, are people going to book you for editing jobs if it looks like you haven't even posted on your page in 6 months? Are people going to hire you as a cover designer? Are people going to want to, like Jenny and I both have publishing houses. Are people going to want to publish books with us, like their solo books, and come to us and say, hey, can you publish my book? If we haven't posted on there in a year, are they going to be like, maybe we'll look for a different publisher who's more active? So whether anyone's engaging on the individual posts or not is a little bit irrelevant when it comes to pages specifically, because pages are a little bit like having blog posts on your website. It's like perma content that when people are Facebook stalking you or even internet stalking you, because Facebook pages are Googleable. Right? You go to Google and you type in Gemini Moon Press, it's going to bring up my Facebook page. And I do that all the time. I live in Italy where people are really garbage at updating Facebook pages. In fact, their social media is atrocious. And there are tons of restaurants and businesses here where I've looked them up because I'm like, oh, we should go to this cafe. And I found it on Google Maps. And then I Google them, and then I find their Facebook page, and I go to their Facebook page, and I can't even work out if maybe that cafe actually still exists or not. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. But because they're not posting on social media, or I will literally look for places that do have an active social media presence, whether I follow them, like them, comment on them or not, to make sure that they're still in business. So as an author, to then be promoting your platform and your offers and leveraging your book to actually make revenue, you need to have content out there. And so if you're just sliding into people's DMs and thinking that you can just do it all behind the scenes and not have anything out in public, that's going to end up working against you, because people are going to be like, oh, she doesn't have an author page or a Facebook page. We can't find her on the internet. She hasn't posted in 2 years. The last thing she posted about on her page was that, she was offering like tarot readings, but now it looks like she's doing lunar business strategy. Like, does she still do tarot readings or not?
Yeah, those are things to talk about. Those are things to create content around. Like if you did make that switch, create content about that switch. Create content about why you made the switch, how it feels, all that. So that you kind of take the people on the journey with you so that they're not guessing.
Yeah. So, I mean, people often, one of the other things I see is people saying, oh, well, I've got a Facebook group, but it's, like it was from my past business, or I've got something, like maybe I should burn it down and start again. or I've got a business page, but I don't really use that business anymore. And I'm personally of the opinion that we just repurpose them and rebrand them. And yeah, sure, you're going to lose some followers and you're going to lose some people, but then some of the people that are there were following you for you anyway. And they're going to stay along for the ride because they are interested in your journey and your evolution, and they might be interested in your new pivot. And the ones who leave, well, that's fine because they're self-selecting that they're actually not part of your niche anymore.
100%. I agree.
So, okay, well, I think just to recap, in case you came late, today we were talking about the leverage gap and what that is. Jenny talked about the three components of how to bridge the leverage gap. So Jenny, can you just refresh our memories on what those three components were?
Yes, absolutely. So number one component is to change the way that you think about book sales. It's number one. Number two is to have some sort of a call to action pieced together with some really great content to actually identify who's purchasing your book. So if they're going to Amazon, we need to know who is purchasing our book so we could take control of the process. And then number three is going to be creating an offer stack to lead a reader from purchasing your book through to purchasing some of your offers and becoming a client of yours. And if you don't have any offers, if you're not a coach or a consultant or doing anything with offers, you can easily create some. Be creative. And that's going to allow your book to generate even more revenue for you.
I mean, even if you have a bricks and mortar business and you sell products, there's no reason that you still can't have some kind of offering. Like one of my beautiful, amazing Lunar Wisdom authors is starting up a subscription box service. So that's the kind of thing where she could then be talking about obviously she's writing in Lunar Wisdom, and her subscription box is all about full moon like boxes with beautiful candles and notebooks and all kinds of amazing goodies for your full moon rituals. So she can tie those things together in her content and give people the opportunity to either sign up for one of her subscription boxes or to check out her online store for some of her other products. So even if you are a product-based business rather than a service business, you can still create an offer stack. So it's not only limited to people who might be coaches or consultants. The only reason Jenny and I talk about this so much is because obviously this is our personal experiences that we are sharing some of these things, not just from our personal perspective, but also clients that we've worked with. But also if you were working in, like if your book is in children's books, like one of my authors is a children's book author, and she talks about in her content as well that she has a children's book. So there's no reason that you can't still leverage those things or products or services by putting that out there in the world. It's just about, like Jenny said, it's about shifting your mindset and working out how you can leverage that and having some kind of a strategy to then be able to create that content and talk about it and have the offer that you're going to put with it, and not being afraid to make that call to action. So if you are really keen to find out more about this, do come and join us in the Women Writing Intentionally collective Facebook community. Jenny and I are in there every day. It's our favorite place to hang out. And you can ask us questions about this. You can, if you are watching this somewhere, it doesn't matter which platform you're on, whether you're on Facebook, whether you are on LinkedIn, whether you are on YouTube, you can leave us a comment and we will also get back to you and do our best to answer your questions. If you would like to contact us or reach out to us on social, please do so and let us know that it is because you have been watching us here on the Women Writing Intentionally show. Next week, we will be covering a little bit more about the author's journey and how you can write your story in a compelling way. Sound good?
I can't wait. I'll be there.
Okay, I'll be there too. It's a
Okay.
date. Okay, guys, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. I know we went a little bit longer than we did last week. We are going to try and keep these short, sweet, and snappy, but there was just so much value that we wanted to pack into today's episode for you because, like we said, we are not here to hide anything from you. We are here to be upfront and open and honest in public, where we believe that all information should be about the secrets of the publishing industry and talking money and leveraging your book. So if you'd like to reach out to Jenny and find out more about how she managed to turn her book launch into $17,500 because you feel like you missed a stage or something, join our free community or DM us on socials and we would love to dive deeper into that for you. So
Yes.
awesome. Thanks, guys. Lots and
Bye,
lots and lots of love.
guys.